Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Mental Wealth Podcast. Of course, I am your host, Ryan Henning, and today we have a very special guest with us, somebody I have been waiting a very long time to have a conversation with, Mr. Tim Billions. Tim, how are you?
I'm doing great, Ryan. How you doing, man?
And I'm doing fantastic, man. I've been looking forward to this interview for quite some time. You are highly referred. I've been on your page as well. I really like what you're doing, and I want to make sure I brought you and exposed you to the audience that we have as well. I think you have some very valuable information.
Man, Ryan, listen again. I definitely appreciate you having me, man. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Nah, man, it's no problem at all, man. So before we get started, I'm just gonna give people a brief overview. I know you are specifically. We're here to talk about wholesale real estate, and I know there's a bunch of people, especially with social media nowadays. There are a lot of people who either have talked about wholesale real estate, or they either they do it or they've heard about it. There's just a lot of things that I hope that you. I know you've been in the field for a while, so I hope you can kind of clarify some of the myths and some of the real life facts that comes with wholesale real estate. But before we get into the actual part about real estate, I want to ask a little bit about yourself. So, where you're from, where you currently reside, and then how did you get started in wholesale real estate as a whole?
Okay. Well, I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland, but I'm in South Carolina now, Charleston, South Carolina. I've been here since a kid, so that's why I usually just say I'm originally from Baltimore because I've been here since I was so young. But just nothing really special about the way I grew up. Single parent, single mom. Dad was strung out on drugs most of my life, and so just growing up like that, just I was an all A student at one time, but around 12, 13, I started to get into the streets real heavy, and that was my life from about 12, 13 to about 25 years old. Man, I'm a dude that I've been arrested 17 times, no high school diploma, never seen college or anything like that, never had a job. And at 25 years old, man, I was sentenced to 10 years in prison. And to be honest, like, besides my children, like, that's the best thing ever happened to me in my life. So it was during this incarceration where I decided within the first 30 days of being in prison that I was going to treat it like college. And that's what I did. I started to read a lot of books, a lot of religious books, a lot of historical books. And then I stumbled across this book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad that just changed my life. Yeah, great book, man. That's the only reason I'm sitting here in front of you now, man. Like that book. And I stumbled, crazy story how I stumbled across the book. But that's what kind of opened my eyes to the whole financial literacy, to real estate, to want to even get into this field. In the streets, I was a hustler, making money illegally. So when I read the book, it just kind of just put it all, full circle for me as far as you can still be a hustler, you can still, make money, but you can do it in a legitimate way. So,
Right.
So from there, man, the author of that book, Robert Kiyosaki, I ended up reading all the rest of his books. He has a few books with Donald Trump, so I started reading some of Trump books, and just it took me on this journey of financial literacy and personal development. And I just, for the remaining of I read that book, I was about 2 years in, so I did almost 9 years. So for the remaining of my bid, man, I probably read about 400 financial, personal development, investment type books, and I chose real estate, man, because I kept seeing in these books that you could flip houses with no cash or credit. Now, at this time, I never saw the term wholesaling. I never saw that, but they just kept saying that you could flip houses without using cash or credit. So that's what got me really interested in real estate, when I kept seeing that you could kind of get into it and make a lot of money without having no money or having credit to get started.
Okay. And I think just to touch back on you doing your prison time, do you feel like at that point in your life that prison was a necessity for you in order to kind of get on the track that you want to get to? Because I do hear a lot of people who kind of go through it, even though they don't want to necessarily go to prison. Some of them do say it took that kind of experience for them to kind of get on the right track.
Well, at that time, I didn't think it was a necessity. But looking back at it now, I heard Steve Jobs say one time, man, you can never connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking backwards. And when I look backwards at the time in prison, like I said prior, besides my children, man, it's the best thing ever happened to me in my life. You know what I mean? I thank God every single day that I went to prison. So it's definitely, when I look back at it, it was a necessity. I needed to go, because if I don't go, I don't know where my life is now. You know what I mean? I was a drug dealer. Well, like I said earlier, I don't have a high school diploma. I've been arrested 17 times. All I know is the streets. All I know is selling drugs. So if I don't go to prison and learn real estate, learn business, learn financial literacy, I'm probably still in the streets doing what I was doing, or getting locked up more and facing even more, or not even facing more time, but possibly doing more time. So right. Yeah, looking back at it now, it definitely was a necessity.
Okay, so you get released from prison. Mm-hmm. You already reading the information about real estate, because of course, once you get to a certain point, once you get to any point about wealth, or any conversation about wealth, pretty much starts with real estate. But there's so many different forms of real estate. So what was it? Was it strictly about how you were able to kind of get into wholesale real estate without having to need a bunch of cash up front, was what kind of got your attention? Or did you look at those other forms of real estate, like, just the ones we familiar with, you being a landlord, financing a house and getting a tenant in there? Was it just the financial aspect of wholesale real estate, or was there anything else that drew you to it?
Yeah, I studied I'm not gonna say every aspect of it, but I studied, all the different facets of real estate. That's what basically, the no money, no credit aspect of it is what kind of led me to the wholesaling real estate. Because I knew coming home, I wasn't gonna have, I didn't have any money, I didn't have any credit, like never knew anything about credit. So I knew I was gonna be starting basically from nothing. So that's what kind of led me to wholesaling, because I knew, you could do it without the money. So that's what led me to real estate game, period. Because I was studying everything from stocks and bonds to futures to options, like any investment vehicle you can think of. I studied it while I was in prison, and I leaned more toward real estate and wholesaling, even though, like I said before, I never even saw that term while I was in prison. None of the books I read ever said anything about wholesaling. I actually heard that term when I came home. But I chose that because, like you said, the no money, no credit aspect of it.
Okay. Do you feel like once you were released, you knew this is what you wanted to do? Did you find when you were released that it was difficult to kind of do anything else? And I asked that because I know there are a lot of people out here, either, like you said, you were, they don't have a high school diploma, you kind of in the streets, and then you go to prison. So you're kind of already used to a unconventional way of life. So you don't have a conventional 9 to 5 before you go in. So when you come out on the other side, you're used to being able to essentially work for yourself. And then you add on top of that, now you have, a record, which we know, historically that, gets kind of held against you in the grand scheme. So do you feel like at that point you were already essentially maybe kind of used to kind of going out here and being on your own in terms of making your own way?
Absolutely. Like the one thing that I enjoy most about just living the way I do now and even then is just the freedom. Like that's more important to me than the money. When you have to have the money in order to have the freedom. You know what I mean? So right. Just having the freedom to, I still wake up early. I get up 4:30 in the morning. I'm reading by 5 o'clock. Like I still read about 40 books a year to this day. And I'm reading by 5. So I still get up early, but just having the option to wake up when I want to, or, I work hard, but I want to work when I want to work, take breaks when I want to take breaks. Like I always tell people, and not to knock nobody who works a job, but, people go on lunch break at 12. So I might be hungry at 10. You know what I mean? So you know what I mean? So I don't want to wait till 12 to eat when I'm hungry at 10. You know what I mean? So just having the freedom, to, just the freedom of my day. But coming home, man, this is definitely what I wanted to do. I had my business plans ready. Everything was based around real estate, and even though I had the plans coming home, I still didn't know how exactly I wanted to get started. You know what I mean? So I had all my plans ready, and I thought I was ready to take over the world, man, because just having that hustler mentality, I was making a lot of money before I went in. So just having that mentality, but coming home, like I have 5 daughters, man, and I came home and I came home 6.5 years ago, and the mother of my kids was strung out on drugs. So I definitely wasn't expecting that, that reality just kind of slapped me in the face. And when I came home and saw her condition, I actually had to get custody of 3 of my daughters as soon as I came home. And I came home with no money, no car, not even a place to stay at first. And a month later, I had to get custody of 2 of them. My oldest daughter was grown and on her own. And I ended up getting custody of 2 of them. And then a few months later, I ended up getting custody of a 3rd daughter. And I actually had to raise them by myself, still raising them by myself. But I had to raise these girls by myself while trying to build up this real estate thing. So I actually just couldn't get started as soon as I came home like I wanted to, because of just the gravity of my situation was just so hard that, getting these girls, getting custody of them, getting them situated, having to find a place to stay, having to find a car. So it just, with all of that going on, I really didn't know how I was going to get started. I actually didn't get started about 5 months after I came home. And then it still took me almost a year to flip my first house. So, just dealing with those issues with getting my custody of my girls and just having to get that situated, man, really took a toll on me. I got partners, man, that's still in the streets, that's still making a lot of money. And when I came home, they were ready to, here you go. You know what I mean? Let's get back right. And bro, like I'm not even gonna say my next time, because it's not gonna be a next time, but the judge told me any other time it would be a minimum of 25 years, a minimum. So I'm facing a minimum of 25 years. I have custody of 3 of these girls that I'm raising by myself. I couldn't go back that route. Like I just chose not to go back that route, even though I had my partners ready to, here you go. I chose not to go back that route because I got these girls. I got to take care of them. If something happens to me, their mom's strung out on drugs, like they'll have nothing. You know what I mean? So I actually met a guy who hooked me up with some sneakers. And I started doing that for about a good, I came home September 2017. I probably started doing the sneakers. I started doing the sneakers right away. And until about October of the next year, I did that. So it took me about a year and a half before I really started making money in real estate.
Okay. And I think that whole story you just told, I think that's very important, because I feel like a lot of times we don't talk about, I think we talk about the hustle that comes with trying to start your own business or trying to get into a certain field. But then we also have to also understand that life is still going on while we're still trying to pursue our dreams or pursue our, entrepreneurship. So just like you said, like you get out, lot changes in that short amount of time, in that amount of time. So now you get out, now you have to, you have to adjust your life. Then you have to, you have to be a father, physically be a father. Now you have to support yourself. You have to support your children. And meanwhile, you have some of your old friends who, are still your friends, but also have different circumstances than you now, because you have, other things that you are looking to pursue. So I think it's very important that we, as entrepreneurs say, hey, just because you are trying to do the right things doesn't necessarily mean that in the immediate, pursuit of that you're still not going to have your own set of hurdles and obstacles.
Absolutely.
So that's very, very important. So, all right. So you get released. You already know what you want to do. You know what you want to do. You just don't know how. So you've read books. You didn't hear the term about wholesale real estate. When you get out, what is your first exposure to actual wholesale real estate?
Man, it's crazy because I get started selling these sneakers because I got to make some type of money. I got bills, I got kids, I got, stuff I got to do. So I started selling these sneakers. It's kind of crazy story. I met this guy, he put me on the little Sneaker Connect, and I'm barely getting by doing that, but it's enough to, keep the lights on and keep the kids fed. Right. So I bumped into it's a cousin of mine that she's a serial entrepreneur, and I ended up bumping into her mother one day at the gas station, and she thought I was somebody else, but she did recognize me. She's like, I know you, but aren't you such and such? And I was like, no, but I'm such and such. And she was like, you and Tristan, her daughter, y'all used to be good friends, right? I'm like, yeah, we related, you know what I mean? But we were real good friends. She actually called her daughter right then while we was at the gas station and put me on the phone with her. And we cousins, but we had been real good friends. We was like in middle school, high school, and things like that. So hadn't seen her in years. So we get to talking, and I get her phone number, and I'm talking to her kind of like every other day, and she puts me on to Forex. So I'm trying to learn how to do Forex trading.
Right, and this is what year?
I came home September 1st, 2017. So this had to have been maybe a month or two later, something like that, in the 2017. So I'm kind of getting into, not even getting into it, just trying to learn it. So I'm on YouTube real heavy, just trying to learn Forex, just looking at studying it. Because when I'm a firm believer in learning whatever I'm going to do first. I don't want to just jump in. I want to, study as much as I possibly can. So I'm looking at all this Forex stuff on YouTube. And then one day, a commercial comes on YouTube for a free real estate seminar coming to my area. So I click on the link, because now it's, bro, when you interested in real estate, didn't you want to do that? At this time, I'm just so far gone from real estate now because it's come home as kids. I'm selling sneakers.
You have immediate needs at that time.
Right. So real estate is not even on my mind. I studied it all these years in prison, but coming home to reality, it just wasn't on my mind. So it just so happened the commercial pops up for the free real estate seminar. I signed up for it, of course, because I'm like, this is what I really want to do. Sign up for the seminar. I go to the 2-hour seminar, and I know you've probably been to some of these free seminars and stuff. They always upsell you on something else.
Right.
But at this seminar is when I first heard the term wholesaling. Right. I first heard the term wholesaling, and it kind of put a name to this thing I had been studying all these years. And they upsold. They come join the 3-day workshop. It was like $300, something like that. So I signed up for that. And Ryan, listen, bro, $300 back then to me was, well, that was everything.
I was just about to ask you, did you feel like you had $300 to spare at that time?
No, I didn't. You know what I mean? I ended up, when I spent that $300, I ended up having to borrow some money just to cover bills and groceries. Well, to be honest, I ended up getting on food stamps for me and the girls, but I had borrowed some money just to cover the remaining bills for that month because I spent that $300, which I didn't have to spend, but I spent it because I knew this was my thing. I wanted, you know what I mean? I finally find a way to kind of get into it. So it's like I can't let $300 stop me, from chasing this dream. So I signed up. Yeah, I'm so glad I did it, bro, to be honest. So I signed up for the 3-day thing, the 3-day workshop, and the weekend of the workshop, bro, it never snows in Charleston. I'm in Charleston, South Carolina, but it never snows down here, bro. The weekend of the workshop, it snows, a blizzard.
Wow.
Like it's a full out blizzard, bro. This is January 2018. So we have a blizzard, man. The workshop is that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Friday, I couldn't make it. It's a blizzard. I'm stuck we're stuck in the house. Saturday comes. I'm praying, bro, like, please let this snow be cleared up by tomorrow so I can at least enjoy the last day of the workshop. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Sunday is still, it really didn't clear up till like early Tuesday morning. So I called the people to ask, could I get a refund for the $300? I need that. I need that back.
I need that.
Yeah, I need that back. So I called to see if I could get a refund, and they was like, "Well, we have another workshop coming to a different part of South Carolina, Myrtle Beach of South Carolina." They was like, "We can do the refund for you, or we can just transfer the funds to that one." And I was like, "Well, let me go ahead and do that. Let me go ahead and sign up for the one in Myrtle Beach." Myrtle Beach wasn't too far; it was like 2 hours away, so I'll go ahead and sign up for that. And I went to the workshop and learned so much, man. That's they started talking about wholesale. Most of it was about wholesaling, but they did talk about other facets of real estate investing as well. And they try to upsell you to a $30,000 and $50,000 program. Of course, I couldn't afford none of that, but I learned so much. And they talked about wholesaling and saying that the best way to get started was to ride around looking for vacant houses, what we call driving for dollars in the wholesaling space. And that was kind of like, I don't want to say the biggest thing I took away from the workshop, but that was one of the main components I took away, because that's what I used to get started, was to just start driving around looking for vacant houses. So that's what kind of like led me, how I kind of got started into wholesaling, even though from then it still took me almost a year before I flipped my first house from leaving that workshop.
Okay, and it just for clarification, so anybody who may not be aware, what exactly is wholesale real estate, and how does it differ than maybe the traditional real estate that we're used to seeing and hearing about in terms of like tenants and landlords? What's wholesale real estate, and how is it different?
Wholesaling is a strategy where you can, for lack of a better word, you can flip houses without using cash or credit. You're not technically flipping a house because you're not really buying the house per se. You're agreeing to buy a house from a person, and then you're finding somebody else that's going to buy that house in your place for more. So for instance, you might find it's different ways to wholesale, but like I said, earlier, the best way to get started is by riding around looking for vacant houses. So you might see a vacant house that's just sitting there. You get in contact with the owner, and let's just say they want $50,000 for the house. You agree to buy the house for $50,000. You can put up a small deposit, like $10. So even though I say no cash, no credit, we do use like $10, and we give them a $10 deposit. We agree to buy the house for whatever they want, 50,000, 100,000, whatever. But let's just say 50. And then I find somebody else who's willing to buy the house in my place for more than 50. So I might find somebody willing to pay 60, or find somebody willing to pay 70. And whatever I can find somebody to pay over is what I can make profit without me having to fix the house up, without me having to use any cash or credit except that $10. So basically, I might agree to buy the house for $50,000, find somebody else willing to pay $70,000, and then I'll walk away with a $20,000 profit in the middle. Like I said, without having to fix the house up, without having to put up any money or use any credit. And that's pretty much what wholesaling on real estate is.
Okay, so we can get in, like I said, with very minimum. There's maybe it's like a holding fee or something like that. For the most part, you're saying, okay, so I can go find a house, not just an empty house. I can find a house with somebody living in it. Correct? It could be empty. Right. Somebody could be living in it, but it's somebody who wants to sell their home for whatever reason. There's a bunch of reasons why somebody would want to sell their house. So I can find somebody who wants to sell their house, walk up to this person, send them something in the mail, whatever the case may be. They're saying they're willing to sell it for $40,000, $50,000. Let's say $50,000. They want to sell their house for $50,000. I can end up getting that house and then end up selling to somebody who's willing to pay me $70,000, and I can take out of the middle.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, that sounds like something that anybody who kind of wants to get into something with some low overhead may want to get into. Now, of course, we know with any line of work, nothing's as simple as it may seem. So, especially when you get started, what are some of the challenges that you faced early on, maybe that you didn't foresee in terms of, maybe something different than your expectation when you first got in?
The number one thing, just being scared to get started. When you're taking on something new, I'm a dude out of the streets. So just trying something new as far as like getting into any type of business or anything legal for that matter. I've never had a job. So to say I'm going to come out of prison, at this time I'm selling sneakers and just trying to figure out how to even get started. Even though I learned at the 3-day workshop, the best way to get started was to ride around, drive, finding the vacant houses. Like just getting started was like the main challenge. And then, still knowing what to do. So when I got started, I left this workshop. This was like the end of January 2018. I actually started my little LLC and the business and all of that on February 9th of 2018. And I go out and I start looking for vacant houses. I'm listening to YouTube every day, 4 or 5 hours a day. Just really kind of like obsessing myself with this thing, going to any little real estate meeting I could find, all the free meetings, little cheap meetings. I'm there, I'm attending, I'm learning as much as I possibly can. But just not going hard enough, not really knowing. And then the thing with like YouTube is a great place to learn things, but with YouTube, you'll hear so many people teaching so many different strategies. That's the one thing about wholesaling. It could be like this with any other business as well. I don't really, know too many other businesses, but with this business, like you'll hear so many people teaching so many different strategies. So, so that was like my main obstacle, just getting started and knowing exactly what to do. So that's why from the time I got started, man, it still took me 11 months to flip my first house, because when I did get started, I kind of was playing with it, not taking it as serious as I should. I was barely finding houses. I was scared to call the homeowners, like just a lot of that. So, like I said, it still kind of took 11 months for me to get the first house flipped, because just, jumping into a whole new world is scary. And
Right.
that was kind of my thing, like just not knowing how to start. I mean, I had the information on how to start, but still just starting, you know what I mean? And
Right.
and
I think a lot of times you try to, like you said, YouTube is a very good tool, but the problem is social media wise, YouTube wise, anytime you're gathering information, there are certain bits of information that you're going to be able to get from a lot of different places. But at the end of the day, there are some things that you are not going to learn until you actually start. And I think that's the aspect people kind of get stuck in. They kind of get information overload. They kind of get, stuck in procrastination because they're trying to learn from this person, learn from that person. They're going to watch this YouTube video, that YouTube video. They're going to watch, they're going to read this book. They're going to read that book. And at a certain point, you've learned as much basic information as you can get. Like I heard somebody say once upon a time, they said the best swimmer didn't learn how to swim from reading a book on how to become the best swimmer. At a certain point, you have to get out there and just take your lumps, dive in the pool and see what shakes out. So I think that's kind of what you're describing there, was like at a certain point, you just kind of got to get out there and take your lumps.
Absolutely. And it didn't happen for me until it was about 9 months in, and I go to, in the streets we call it re-up, when you go get more or whatever you're selling. So I told you I'm selling shoes at the time. So one night, man, I go to go re-up on my shoes or whatever, my sneakers and all the stuff I'm selling, and I spend all my money except $100. Now all that week, bro, I felt a little something funny. Like that Monday, my brakes go out on my car, and at this time, I probably got like $2,000 to my name. You know what I mean? And my brakes go out on my car that Monday. Tuesday, I lose my keys. Right? I'm searching the house, bro. I done tore the whole house down. I done went to trash cans. I done went outside to the big trash cans. I'm searching the big trash cans. I don't know where my keys are. This Tuesday, I usually go do my little re-up every Friday, right? So Thursday come, I still can't find the keys. So Friday, I call the locksmith, right? They charge me $300 to come make another key for the car. So this $250 I spent on my brakes on Monday, $300 to get a new key on Friday. All this eating up into the money that I used to go re-up with my sneakers. So I finally go Saturday. Now it's a 4-hour drive from me to where I go at to get my stuff. But like I said, the whole week I felt just weird. From the brakes to the keys to me taking this drive that morning, the whole thing just felt funny. And I go and I spend all my money, get all the stuff I need to get. I probably got like $100 to my name to make this 4-hour ride back home. Well, I come out. I end up going to like get something to eat or somewhere. I stop somewhere real quick. I come outside and somebody had broken into my car and took everything. Like all my stuff.
Go wrong, will go wrong.
Well, I'm talking about they took everything. Like it's so crazy because when you open up the trunk of a car, like some cars got like a little carpet down at the bottom of the trunk. Like I had my trunk filled up with bags of the stuff that I got. When I went to pop the trunk and I lifted it a little bit, I just saw the carpet. I didn't even finish opening the trunk. I just slammed it back and just start cursing. You know what I mean? So
you think somebody was watching you?
Yeah, because I was coming down there every week.
Okay.
Okay. Same car.
A little bit of a setup there.
Yeah, so they were watching me, and it had happened previously, like about 4 or 5 months before. They got me for like I had like 3 or 4 pairs that were left over from the previous week. So they ended up getting me, some months prior. And so this time when they got me, they really got me. They got everything. And so like I said, I got like $100 to my name. I go riding, take the 4-hour drive back home. I get pulled over and get a $250 speeding ticket.
So far it sounds like you having the worst week ever for like any person. Now this is somebody now you've been to prison, so of course in comparison this isn't that.
Not that.
Even just as you telling the story, it's like, man, like what else can happen to you while you're trying to get your stuff together?
Well, further along the ride, one of my headlights go out.
Okay.
On the same trip home. There's
a black cat, something going around right now.
Bro, I said to myself, you know what I said to myself though when the headlight go out? I said, this is God's way of telling me, bro, quit with the sneakers. Like, don't you want to sell, flip houses? Isn't real estate the thing you really want to do? So I made the decision right then that I'm not doing this no more. I'm done with the sneakers. Like, I had been trying to do the real estate. This 9 months that went by since I started. I started, like I said, February 2018. This was October 2018. October 20th, 2018. I never forget. And still had made no money in real estate. So that's when I was like, man, take this thing serious. Because I had been playing around, really not looking for houses like that, scared to call the homeowners, like just playing. And that night right there, I made the decision, like, bro, I'm not going back to sell no sneakers no more. I'm done with that. Let me take this real estate thing serious. And I get home, and the next day, I call one of my partners. Well, it's my best friend. He's my business partner now. But I called him. I borrowed like $1,000, man, so I could pay some bills, have some growth. Well, I think I was still on food stamps then, but just pay some bills or whatever I needed, needed some money. And I started taking this thing serious, man. Like I started riding around almost every day looking for vacant houses. I started posting on my Facebook page for people to send me addresses to vacant houses. I'll pay you a $500 referral fee if I buy the house. I had to put on there if I flip the house, because I didn't even have $500 in my name. You know what I mean? I'm making this post every day. And 2 months later, man, one of my ex-prison roommates, he sent me a couple addresses, and I ended up getting in contact with one of the guys, one of the homeowners that he sent me, and ended up flipping my first house. This is 11 months after I got started. And bro, to be honest, right before I got this house flipped, I wrote in my journal one night. I'll never forget, man. It was December 27th, 2018. I wrote in a journal, because I used to keep a journal back then. I have $6 to my name. And I mean, just imagine you raising 3 kids by yourself, and you get down to your last $6.
$6.
Right? And I said, man, I have $6 to my name, but somehow I know I'm gonna make it happen. And 4 days later, I ended up getting in contact with a guy, and he did want to sell the house. The house is a 4-hour drive away from me. My best friend, he gave me $200 more just so I could have some money to go take the ride to go see the house. And I ended up getting the house flipped and made $10,000 off that house. And then in the next 7 months, I made another $112,000, and just kind of never look back.
Been rolling from there. So I know you say you made, so that first deal you made $10,000 profit. Do you remember the particulars of that deal? How much did you end up buying it for, and how much you end up selling it for?
Absolutely, man. Like when I got it, man, it's so crazy because I couldn't, like with wholesaling, you try to find the homeowner, you try to get them on the phone. But some people you can't always get on the phone, so we write them letters as well. We can't get them on the phone. So this guy right here, I couldn't find the right phone number for him, so I sent him a letter, telling him I was interested in buying the house, and could he give me a call? The guy had been trying to call me, Ryan, and my phone was off, man.
Wow.
My phone was off. So he wrote me a letter. And that never happened. That's the one and only time that has ever happened where somebody wrote me a letter back saying, yes, I do want to sell the house. Well, that's because my phone had never been off again since then. But he wrote me a letter saying, yes, I do want to sell this house. I've been trying to call you, but it's keep going straight to whatever he said. By the time I got the letter from him, I had my phone back on. So I called him, and the house had been sitting vacant for 20 years. He actually bought the house so that he could fix it and flip it. But he had a stroke right after he bought the house, and it had been sitting vacant since 1999. And this is January 2019 when I'm on the phone with him. So he was like, man, I just want $20,000 for the house. So when I looked the house up, it was worth like 125. After you fix it up or whatever, it's worth like 125. It's on almost 2 acres of land. So like I said, I had $6 to my name. It's a 4-hour drive just to go see the house. So my best friend at the time, like I said, my business partner now, he gives me the $200 to go see the house. He's my best friend. He's already a businessman. He was, to be honest, he was in the streets too. And when I ended up going to prison, he changed his life. Like, he took that as a lesson. Like, well, let me go ahead and let me go legit.
I have something else to do.
Yeah. Let me, So by the time I came home, he had owned like he got up to like 13 Booth Mobile stores. So at this time, I think he'd owned like 10. So I ended up stopping by one of the stores, and I talked to him on the phone, told him I needed some money to take this 4-hour ride. And I didn't know what he gave me. He handed me the money, balled up, dapped me up. I go out the store, get in the car, and I look, and I see it's $200. So I'm just like, man, thank you. You know what I mean? I take the ride, go see the house. Ryan, I get up here, man, this house is so junky, so raggedy, like just so run down. In my mind, I'm like, man, I'd never be able to flip this house, man. Like, I'd never be able to do this. Like, I tried to talk dude down to 10,000, he wouldn't go down. 15,000, he wouldn't go down. It was 20,000 or nothing. To be honest, the only reason I signed the contract with him is because I already had took the 4-hour drive. Like, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't. If this house would have been 10 minutes away from me, I probably wouldn't have did it. Like, it was because I already had drove 4 hours. I'm like, man, let me go ahead and get the contract signed. I signed the contract for 20. He wanted 20,000 for the house. I signed the contract for 20,000, and I gave him the $10 for the deposit. And I drove on back home. This was a Sunday night. That next day, that Monday, I don't even try to find a buyer for the house. Because in my mind, I'm like, man, this house run down. Like, it's been vacant 20 years. Like, nobody ain't gonna buy this house. And the whole day go by, I don't even try to find a buyer. The next day, that Tuesday, bro, I woke up and I was like, bro, like, I had to check myself. Like, bro, you broke. Like, you broke. You finally got a house with the contract.
About as real as it can get.
Yeah, like, I'm like, bro, you finally got a house with the contract. It's been 11 months. You've been trying to get this thing done. You finally got a house, and now you're not even going to try to find a buyer for it. So I got up and started doing some of my little strategies, trying to, because this area is 4 hours away from me, so I don't know no buyers in that area. And I do my little searching. I'm on Craigslist. I'm on Zillow, trying to find buyers or whatever. And I end up finding 3 guys that buy houses in that area. And I got on the phone with them, let them know I was trying to get $30,000 for the house. So basically, I was gonna make a $10,000 profit. I got it for 20. I agreed to buy it for 20, and I was putting it out to them for 30. And
that's a good job. How did you come up with that number? Why didn't you go $15,000, $20,000 in the middle?
I wish I would have went. I could have went to 40, but just so scared. You just
wanted to make anything. To get you didn't know hardly anything about it. The experience you got now, it's like, I could have made a lot more on that.
Yeah, after I flipped it, I realized I could have went to 40. You know what I mean? But not knowing, scared, not thinking I was going to even find a buyer for it. So surprised when I'm thinking about it now, I put it out for 25. Like, just being so scared. But that was Tuesday. 2 days later, one of the guys called me back. Ryan, I never forget. I'm walking in the UPS store, and the guy was like, man, he was standing in the yard. He was like, man, you want $30,000 for this house right here? I said, yes, sir. He said, man, you come up here tonight, I'll give you the money. And man,
how did that feel?
Lord have mercy. Like, that was like getting out of prison over again. Man, like, just because at this time I'm home for almost a year and a half, broke the whole time, on food stamps, borrowing money just to pay bills. Like, I had a girlfriend at the time who, I hate to say this because we super good friends again now, but like, when you got a girlfriend, right, and you broke, like,
it's rough.
It's rough. Yeah, it's rough. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna say talking down, but it was rough. You know what I mean? So just going through all of this for that year and a half, bro, to finally hear somebody say, You come up here tonight, I give you the money. Man, it was just like the weight of the world was lifted off my shoulders. And I go up there that Saturday, sign the contract with him for the $30,000. He gives me $1,000 deposit that day. And 2 weeks later, I picked up the check for the remaining $9,000, man, and got my first house flipped. And just, like I said, in the next 7 months after that, I made another $112,000. Just never looked back from there.
Man, like that's a crazy roller coaster ride. Every type of emotion you could think of, because like I said, you went from this is what I want to do to having the opportunity to do it, and kind of, you're selling sneakers. This is the thing that's making you money at the moment. So in order to pursue the prospect of making more money, you have to essentially stop doing this thing that's making you immediate money with you having immediate needs. So absolutely. A lot of times that is very difficult. You find that out with people who, have jobs that pay them enough for them to be broke sometimes, where you're barely getting by, but this is all that you know. So if I were to leave this or pursue this other thing and put money from one place to the next, there's no guarantee this is going to work out. But like, as you have to put in the work. You can't treat it like a hobby. If you treat it like a hobby, it's going to pay you like a hobby. So you have to go out here and treat it as a full-blown business. And when you started to actually pursue it, things broke your way. Things just kind of break for the people who go ahead and put in that work. I think that's a very important message.
It's crazy that you said that, because that's the exact words that I say to my coaching group. Like I have a coaching group now. I coach people how to do this, and I say that exact same words that you just said. Like, if you treat it like a hobby, you're going to get paid like a hobby. And I don't know who the highest paid hobbyist is in the world. You know what I mean? I don't know that guy. You know what I mean? That's exactly what I say. Like I'm pretty sure you heard saying, like, making $50,000 a year can keep you from making $50,000 a month. You know what I mean? Because like you said, when you just have that security blanket of this is what's paying the bills, it's kind of scary jumping and chasing something else. But, most of us are believers in the Bible. Faith without works is dead. You got to have that faith to just step out. I heard one time that an entrepreneur is somebody who jumps off a cliff and builds a parachute on the way down. And that's kind of like what you have to do, man. You have to take that jump, that leap of faith, and just believe. Like I told you, 4 days before I got that first house, I was down to my last $6. And I wrote in a journal, I have $6 to my name, but somehow I know I'm going to make it happen. And I think that's the biggest part, maybe not the biggest, but that's one of the biggest components of becoming successful, is just believing that you can do it, believing that it's going to work, and believing that it's going to happen for you. And if you don't have that belief, like, it may not happen. That belief is what is going to make you do the work, even when you don't see the results, how it's going to happen, how it's going to work out for me. You just still get out there and just put in as much work as you possibly can. And like you said, those who do that, they end up, working out for them.
Yeah. So today, as of from where you started to now, what's your biggest flip? What's your biggest profit margin when it came to a flip?
65,000.
65,000 on one deal.
On one deal.
How long was that deal?
That was actually my second flip.
Your second flip became your biggest profit.
It's so crazy. When I went to that 3-day workshop, the guy who taught the workshop, he said, my second wholesale deal was $48,000. He said, I never made another one that big, but my second one was $48,000. The girlfriend who I had at the time, I looked at her, I said, we're going to do one bigger than that. I swear to God, I looked at her, I said, we're going to do one bigger than that.
That's some confidence.
It is. And my second one was $65,000. I've been doing this for 6 years now, and I have done 4 that have been over $50,000. But the typical wholesale deal is like $10,000, $15,000. Well, I'm not gonna say that like that's a little bit of money. That's a lot of money, but
right.
That's the typical deal. $10,000, $15,000. But I have done 4 of them that have been $50,000 or better.
Okay. And do you feel like when you coach your students, I know they come in with a lot of preconceived notions. They come in with a lot of information somewhat already. Mm-hmm. And like you said, not every deal is going to be $65,000. Some may be 10, some may be 5. So do you teach your students to look for volume, or do you teach them more about trying to find houses with a bigger margin in the middle?
What I try to do, man, is get them to get that first one done from driving around, right? So no matter what I want them to do is make at least 10, because what I try to get them to do from there is take about 3,000-4,000 and let's turn this into a business. So where they don't have to be just riding around, because it's all different type of strategies you can do to wholesale. But riding around looking for vacant houses is not only is it the best way, it's the simplest way to get started. So I'd like to tell them to do that. Get that first house done, make 10, 15, 20,000, whatever you can make off that first one. And then let me show you how to take about 3,000 or 4,000 of that money and turn this thing into a business where now instead of riding around, you can start buying lists of pre-foreclosures or people who owe their taxes. Let's buy these lists and then pay somebody to make the calls and find these people for you. So we turn it into a business. And so that's my biggest thing, not looking for a big profit margin, but like, let's just get the first one done. So now I can show you how to take some of that money from the first flip and turn this thing into a business.
Okay. All right. So let's say I am looking to get into wholesale real estate and I go around driving for dollars. What are some of the top ways that I can tell whether this house is either vacant or the person who owns it may be up for selling it to somebody? What are some things I can look out for outside of of course, if I see a for sale sign, I may want to stay away from that because not everybody knows this house is for sale. So they may not take the deal that I'm looking for. So what are some ways that I can spot a house that looks like something I can potentially get some margin out of?
And it's good that you said that, because I typically don't even mess with the houses that have the for sale sign in front of them. Like if it has a realtor sign in front of it, I don't mess with it. For sale by owner, I may call them, but they usually want a little bit too much for it to be a good deal. But you want to look for houses that don't have a realtor sign in front of them. Windows boarded up, windows busted out. Some people have no blinds or curtains in the window, so you can see straight through the house. A good time to go is like on that in that neighborhood's garbage day. So you might see every house have their trash can on the side of the road, but this house doesn't. Old cars in the yard with no tags on them, mailbox stuff full of mail, old newspapers thrown in the yard, like stuff like that. I use an app called Land Glide. It's like you gliding over the Land Glide app, and it's about $10 a month. But the great thing about this app is when you pull in the yard of a vacant house, it'll give you the owner's name, it'll give you the address of the house, so you don't have to be trying to look and see what's the number on the house. It'll tell you the address, it'll tell you the owner's name, and it'll tell you the owner's current address. And that's cool because if we can't find the person's phone number, like I said earlier, we can write them letters to their current address where they live at now. And Landglide is also helpful because it'll help you know who the owner is as soon as you pull in the yard. And that's important because I like to stay away from like corporations or like trusts or any type of business entity. I like to look for just regular people, regular names. And, before I had Landglide, I used to have to get the address, come home, get on the county website, find the person through that. But now with Landglide, as soon as I pull in the yard, I know who the owner is. And that just saves me a lot of time because, like I said, I stay away from like any type of business entity that owns the house. I just want regular people.
All right, now I can imagine, let's say I am a homeowner, regardless of the condition of the house, or maybe I stay there, maybe my father, my grandfather stays there. I can imagine if I get a random phone call from somebody saying, hey, you interested in selling this house for, I give you 30,000 for it. I may say, hey, come on, man. Like I know I could get 67, especially in this market. A lot of people think like, I can get way more for this house. Like, why would I sell it to like this random person calling me? I'm pretty sure in the beginning, you have to know kind of how to approach these people, because a lot of people I know maybe don't want to sell to, they would rather sell to a known company. They rather sell to somebody that they've heard about rather than somebody who sent them a letter in the mail, or I'm pretty sure you ran across some people who are like, hey, well, I know you're going to flip this house, so I want at least this much because I know you're going to make this on it. So how did you learn over time to handle the calling and the contacting part of this process? Because I know that may be a barrier for a lot of people who maybe feel like they can't communicate what they're trying to do properly.
Absolutely, that's a great question, Ryan. A combination of experience and courses and coaching and mentor, just all of that, YouTube, like just everything, man. When I started, I was obsessed. Even though I didn't go as hard doing it when I first got started, I was going hard at learning. So I was learning YouTube every day. I actually bought a course. Like when I went to that 3-day workshop, I couldn't, try to upsell you to the $30,000 and $50,000 thing. I couldn't afford that, but they had $1,000 course, and I ended up borrowing some money from my grandfather, and taking the course. So that when I did the $65,000 flip, I bought a $6,000 course. So like just all of these courses, all of this coaching experience, that's kind of like what got me good, talking to people, dealing with people. Because with wholesaling, the number one skill you got to have is like people skills and good communication skills. And it's a numbers game. So you're going to talk to a lot of people. Like you said earlier, the house doesn't have to be vacant for you to flip it. They can be living in it. They can be rented out. I prefer vacant houses because the person is going to be more motivated to sell that house because it's sitting there vacant, as opposed to if they're living in it or they're renting it out. So it's a numbers game with wholesaling. Even though the house is vacant, you're going to get some people who are going to be rude, know they don't want to sell, not right now. Let me talk to my husband, my wife, my daughter, sister, brother, my dog. Like you're going to hear all of these different things. So you have to be constantly finding as many houses as possible, to go ahead and get that, because you might get 10, 15 no's before you get one yes. But just, like I know, and like I tell my students, just keep in mind that one yes can be life-changing. For me to say I've done 4 houses that have been over 50,000, like, the average American, I think, makes like 50,000 in a year. So if you can possibly do one house that makes 50,000, like that's life-changing money. So that's what I just try to tell people, that just keep in mind, like, yeah, you're going to get a lot of no's. Yeah, you're going to get some people that's going to be rude, but just keep in mind that one yes can change your life. It did for me. I've done that for several of my students. Man, my ex-prison roommate who sent me the address for the first house I ever flipped, about 2 or 3 years after that, he called me one day and he was like, bro, man, I just got laid off from work. I'm struggling right now, man. Like, I'm doing bad. And to be honest, I thought bro was about to ask me to, borrow some money. And he must have just read my mind, because I probably would have gave him the money, because I'm a giver. I always give away 10% of everything I make. Like I'm a giver. And he was like, well, I don't need to borrow no money. But can you just please teach me how to do what you're doing? And I did that. And it took him about 6-7 weeks before he got his first house flipped, made a few thousand. He did 2 more right behind that. And he's been making 6 figures every year since I taught him. But he did a flip about a year ago, maybe a little less than a year ago, 9-10 months ago, where he made 90,000 off one flip. So, and that's second, third year in, $90,000 off one flip. So, that's the biggest flip. I got a student right now that's in the process. He might be making 100,000 off a flip. He's in Akron, Ohio. So, some of these flips can be life-changing money. So that's why I just always tell people, find as many houses as possible, because yeah, you're gonna get a lot of no's. Yeah, you're gonna get some people who you can't even get them on the phone. We gotta write them letters. Yeah, some people are gonna say not right now, and let me talk to my husband and wife and all of that. But just keep in mind that one yes can be life-changing. And that's the reason why you should go so hard and take this thing as serious as possible. It's no cash, no credit. It's not no cash, no credit and easy. You know what I mean? If it was no cash, no credit and easy, I'd be flipping a house every single day. You know what I mean? So it's not no cash, no credit and easy. Then it would really be a scam. But you definitely can get started with no cash, no credit, gas money. If you got a car, you got a phone, that's all you need to get started, man.
And I just to kind of piggyback off of that, I'm glad you said the word scam, because that kind of gets me to my next point, which is, so you went from, like I said, we went from prison to selling sneakers to having $6 to flipping our first property. We've been flipping ever since. Then how did you make the determination to go from doing wholesale real estate and still doing it to also feeling like you're comfortable enough to start coaching? And I ask because there are, of course, with the, especially since the pandemic, there have been a lot of people who started businesses during the pandemic, a lot of people who got into different fields. And frankly, there are a lot of people who maybe got into business that never evolved the business as the pandemic had subsided. And so what you ended up with is a lot of people who took information they got off of YouTube, didn't put their own experiences to it, and then ended up taking on clients or taking on students. So I ask you, what made you feel like you were comfortable enough in what you were doing and how you were doing it to feel like you were comfortable enough to be able to coach somebody who came either from a background similar to you or came from just a spot where they had a little bit of apprehension? Maybe they've been burned a couple of times. How did you get comfortable enough to be like, I can teach you how to get to this point?
It was on accident, to be honest. Like teaching other people was something I never like set out to do. I was just doing it. I got a little following on Facebook, so I would be posting houses that I had flipped myself. I just flipped this house. I would never say how much I made, but I just flipped this house, no cash, no credit. And I had a guy that we lived in the same neighborhood when we was younger for a few years, and he either inboxed me or it had to have been a DM, but he was just like, bro, what are you doing, man? Like, what you mean you can flip a house with no cash, no credit? And we ended up getting on the phone because, like I said, we knew each other when we were kids. We lived in the same neighborhood like 4 or 5 years when we were young. And we ended up getting on the phone, and he just asked me a million questions, man. Like, he started asking me a million questions. And then he asked me, could we meet up one day? And we met up one day at the library. I brought my computer with me, man. And I just started, I taught him everything. Didn't charge him nothing, just started teaching him because he even asked me so many questions. And he seemed like he was serious. A lot of people would inbox me and ask me a little question here and there, but he was like serious about it. You know what I mean? And, I told him everything he needed to know to get started. He went out and just started riding around looking for vacant houses. It took him 2 months, about close to 2 months before he got his first one done. And he made $5,000 on that. And then the week after, he flipped a piece of land because, you can do this with vacant land. You can do this with mobile homes. I actually made close to $60,000 flipping a trailer one time. But you can do this with mobile homes. You can do this with land. So he flipped his first house close to 2 months in, made $5,000. The next week he made another $5,000 off a piece of land, and then 2 weeks after that he flipped another house and made $15,000. So that's 90 days of me teaching him. He made $25,000, right? So when he did that, I was like, man, I might as well start teaching others. I might as well start charging for this. I just helped this man make $25,000 in 3 months. Yeah, so I'm like, well, let me go ahead and start teaching this. And I just, I made a post one day on Facebook. If y'all want to learn how to flip houses with no cash or credit, DM me. Back then, I ain't have no links, no website. I got all that stuff now. But because I always tell people, you can't start off perfectly, no matter what you're trying to do. A lot of people, I think, procrastinate because they want to have a website and business card and this, I started off with just Facebook posts like, hey, if you want to learn, DM me. Cash at me. I think I was charging like $500 or something, $1,000, something like that. I can't even remember, but it was something like that back then. And just cash at me, and I'll meet you at the library, and it was that type of stuff back then. And it started with him, man, helping him make that $25,000 in the first 90 days. He went on to he told me, he was like, man, I make $50,000 a year on my job. He was working at the Mercedes plant down here in Charleston. And he was like, man, I make $50,000 a year on my job. He was like, once I make $50,000 doing this, I'm quitting the job. Well, he waited till he made $105,000. He did that in 11 months. He made $105,000, and he quit the job to do this full time. That was 2020, and he's still doing it full time. He's actually buying the houses now, fixing them up, flipping them. I don't know if he has any rentals because we don't really talk like that no more. But I know he's buying the houses and actually fixing them up and flipping them now, and he's still doing it full time. Got some employees, and he took off. So when I saw that I was able to help him do that, that's what made me like take the coaching serious, and started just charging people to teach them how to do it as well.
Okay, and of course now, we always have to say, okay, when it comes to any level of business or any field of business, just because you could have all the basic information, but business is not for everyone.
No.
So when you take on students and you have students in your in your coaching, what are some of the things that you can tell right off the bat that are that you can kind of tell, like, okay, this isn't going to be for you, versus somebody who you could tell, like, okay, they're going to succeed? How can you tell the difference now that you've been in it for a certain amount of time between somebody who you think is going to be all right and somebody who's like, okay, this is they're going to do this, and then once this coaching's over, then they're going to go right back to doing what they were doing before?
That's a great question. That is a great question. I think people who are real curious and like not even curious, but like real inquisitive and ask a lot of questions, and I can tell that they're hungry. Like, cause when I got started, I was real hungry. My back was against the wall. I don't know nothing else. I don't have a diploma. I've never had a job. So it's like if real estate didn't work out for me, who knows? I don't know where we at. You know what I mean? So
Right.
That's where I can tell with people when they sound hungry. When I get them on that first call and they asking me 1,000 questions. Anybody who gets started working with me, the first thing I do is they get my course, and when they go through the course immediately and they asking me question after question after question, as opposed to some students who get the course and 2 weeks later they still haven't gone through the modules yet. No questions, like, don't sound hungry. Like I said earlier, and a lot of people working 9 to 5, got kids. I understand that. But I tell people all the time, bro, like, I don't accept no excuses. If I made it from the situation I made it from, then you can do the same too. You just have to make the time. So when I don't hear the hunger or I don't get the million questions, like, that's a good indicator for me that it might not work out for this person because they just don't sound hungry. And, like I said earlier, making $50,000 a year can keep you from making $50,000 a month. I always tell people, man, that the opposite of doing great is doing good, because a lot of people are doing good to where, okay, I got some money in the bank, I got a car, I'm okay. And that being okay can hinder you from being great, because, like, I read a lot of books, man. I study a lot of successful people. Most of the successful people I know, including myself, started with nothing, started from rock bottom. I always tell people, well, rock bottom can be a beautiful place. It really can. It don't feel like that when you're there. It can be a beautiful place. So when I just don't hear that hunger, that I gotta have this or else type mentality, that's when I can kind of tell, like, okay, this might not work out for this person, because they just don't sound hungry enough. They don't sound inquisitive enough, and they are possibly going to treat this like a hobby.
Okay. I got to look like exactly what you said. When you get into a certain space, you can kind of tell when somebody is asking just to kind of dip their toe in it. And then some people are asking because they generally like, okay, I read this, but I need clarification on this. So I know that's a very important piece of the coaching process, because of course we do, we've had courses, we've had coaching, we still do I still do one-on-one coaching as well. And you can kind of tell when somebody's reaching out to you because they saw the lifestyle that you're living. Right. And then you can also tell when somebody's reaching out to you because they're willing to put in the work to obtain their version of said lifestyle. Because I think a lot of people get into the space and they get into it out of fear, especially when you look back at pandemic times. A lot of people bought a lot of courses. A lot of people bought a lot of programs. A lot of people started a lot of businesses because they were afraid of not having any income because of their job, maybe, cutting back or, losing their job. But as the years went by and people had less money to spend on any and everything that people were putting out. People had to be a little more selective with their money, inflation, things like that. I think they didn't know how to pivot and relay the information because back during the pandemic, everybody was inside. So everybody could be reached essentially through their phone or through their computer screen. And so when you kind of get everybody back outside, how are you going to get these people's attention long enough to be able to get them the education behind kind of the method? I think a lot of people struggle with that as business people because eventually at some point you got to go outside.
You're right. I didn't even think about it like that. Like a lot of, as you were saying that, I started thinking like that. And that is when I started seeing a lot of courses and stuff during the pandemic. I didn't even have a course then during the pandemic. I had started coaching then, but I was just meeting people at the library and, doing little stuff like that. But that is, you're right. That is when a lot of courses and coaches and stuff like that started popping up. I guess with any business, bro, this thing is a grind. When I was in prison, I used to read all these entrepreneurial books and all these business books. I used to be preaching to brothers in there. When you go home, start a business, don't get because I never had a job. So I don't even know the first thing to even get a job, what to do, you know what I mean? So I used to always just preach to brothers, bro, start a business when you go home. Like you can do it with a little bit of money, no money. I remember me and this dude got into an argument one time in prison because I was saying you can start a business with no money. And he was like, how? I said, bro, you can come home right now and go start cutting people's grass and use their lawnmower. Ask, can you go to door and say, can I use your lawnmower? Because he asked me to give him an example. And I just came up with this off the top of my head. You can go to door and say, can I use your lawnmower to cut your grass? And I'll charge you. And you can start from there. But now that I have, gone through the ups and downs and the peaks and valleys of entrepreneurship and read about a lot of other people, I don't preach it to people as much, man, because you got to be built a certain way to go through this. Like this is definitely not for everybody.
In you, it has to be. This is a grind. This is a grind. There are a lot of like we tell people, like I tell people, when you get into the entrepreneur space, especially the full-time entrepreneur space, you are taking all of the responsibilities that your job once handled for you. You're in control. If you think you're gonna be somebody who, and I love that you mentioned in the beginning what time you woke up. I feel like a lot of people think I work for myself. That means I can afford to wake up at 12 o'clock, at 1 o'clock. I can kind of do everything when I want to do it. And they don't have a real schedule. And they don't even take all of the things that they did previously at their job. Your job was telling you when to be there. Your job was telling you when you get off. Your job, you're probably getting paid more than you should get paid based on the amount of effort that you're giving them. You're probably getting overpaid. So I think a lot of people don't look into those aspects because they're looking like, oh man, I hate my job. They're not paying me enough. It's like, no, they're probably paying you more because you're probably slacking. And you say you hate your job, but you're also not filling out applications. You're not doing wholesale real estate. You're not, taking these courses that, that may be 50 to 100, 200, even $500 could be worth it. Because you're going to take that $500 and you could potentially turn it into $500,000, but you're not going to put in that same amount of work. And I think that's a very valuable lesson for anybody who watches us specifically in the entrepreneur space, because you, like you said, you don't have any room to make excuses. You had to make it happen. And I think I can imagine when you come in contact with somebody who has more resources than you had, or maybe even more resources than you have now, who don't show the work ethic, I can imagine that really irritates you on a level.
Yeah, it does. It does, because like you in order to be successful, man, you just have to have the hunger, man. Like you have to be willing to get up early. You have to be willing to read the books, do the studying. Like you have to. Like this thing, and I think is because I listen to a lot of speakers and a lot of seminars and stuff. I think it's Jim Rohn that says if you work on your job, you can make a living. But if you work on yourself, you can make a fortune. And you have to be willing to work on yourself like every day, like not just doing the business. Like that's why with my coaching group, I named it Abundant Minds Academy, because I could have named it 10 Billions House Flipping, because we mostly talk about house flipping. But I do goal setting classes. I have a book of the month. Like, I want to teach having an abundant mindset. You know what I mean? Because that's where it all starts. Is working on yourself, becoming more than what you already are. Bro, I'm a drug dealer. You know what I mean? I'm a drug dealer that's been to jail 17 times. The only thing that I did was working on me. That's how I got from being a drug dealer that went to jail 17 times to where I'm at now. Is I worked on myself. I started getting up 4:30 in the morning in prison because I had to read before these dudes got up. You know what I'm saying? Like the rest of the dorm would wake up, and now I can't read because everybody running around the dorm, making noise, yelling. So I started waking up 4:30 in the morning so I could be up before everybody. And I started reading. I ended up getting a coffee addiction because in prison, the cells be so cold that I'm up 4:30 in the morning trying to study these business books, and I'd be dozing off. So I started drinking coffee. Still, that was 2011. I'm still drinking coffee every morning now to this day. But it's the putting the work in on yourself to become more than what you already are. Like, you don't get more until you become more. You know what I mean? So that's where it started, man. It started with putting in that work on you, becoming a more evolved person, a more learned person, a more studious person, a more giving person. Like a lot of people don't like to give. They wonder why they can't get money. It's because you don't give money. You know what I mean?
You can't be afraid to let that money go.
No, that's why
money's not gonna work for you if you're not. I think a lot of people, and I think that's another good aspect is I think a lot of people feel like there's more money on this earth than people. They're always printing money. So I think you have to, in order for just like a person, like if you have a spouse, if you have a roommate, somebody that you live with, if you never let that person outside of the house and never open that door to let them go out and work, how are they going to bring anything back to the house? It's the same thing with money. Like you have to let the money go in order for it to go out and work for you in order to bring more money back. So you have to be able to have that abundant mindset that realize that, hey, if I let this go, yes, there's a possibility that I could spend this money and I could lose on this deal or I could lose on this venture. But a lot of people gamble with other things other than money every day. You gamble with your time every day. You get out in traffic every day. That's a gamble. You go out and you'll buy lottery tickets. You'll go out and spend money at the club and spend money on, marked up bottles. We spend money all the time, even when we don't even realize it. So if you're willing to do those type of things, you should be willing to bet on yourself. I just think a lot of times we don't bet on ourselves because, truth be told, we're not confident in ourselves, and then we'll blame the coach, or we'll blame the course, or we'll blame the YouTube, or there's no way that it can be real, even though we have real life examples of people who are doing it who came from worse circumstances. And that's why I love what you said earlier, where when you got out, you had friends who were still in the streets. You decided to turn that down. And then you got to the end of your story and you had a friend who was doing well in his other ventures with opening up his cell phone stores, and you had to go to him. So just even that, that whole story about you had people doing this over here, still had love for them, but that's not the route you were trying to go. And then you eventually found somebody who you knew who was going the route you were trying to go, and they actually helped you get to that next level. So that also speaks to, who you surround yourself with and the people who you communicate with.
So proximity is another thing, man. I know you heard the saying, if you hang around 4 broke people, you'll be the 5th one. Or if you hang around, you got to put yourself around people. At the beginning, I didn't have anybody who I could hang with that's talking like this. So I had to become a seminar junkie. Like I had to be listening to the Jim Rohns and the Brian Tracy's and the guys who talking like this. And that's what, imparted the knowledge and the information into my mind to go hard. Like, to be honest, it took me 11 months to flip my first house. If I'm not listening to these guys, these successful people talk about how hard it is, talk about how to struggle, how you're going to go through it, I might would have gave up. It took almost a year before I made some money doing this. So if it wasn't for me listening to these guys, reading these books, listening to all these successful people talk about how hard the journey is, I might would have gave up. But it's because I surrounded myself not personally. I got hundreds of coaches that I never met because I've listened to them so much. I've read their books. Like, I surrounded myself with like-minded people, not physically, but through YouTube, through seminars, through books. And that proximity, man, it meant so much. Still means so much because I still do it. I still read, 30, 40 books, maybe more than that like I said earlier, I get up 4:30 in the morning, bro. By 5 o'clock every morning, I'm reading 45 minutes to an hour, like every morning, 7 days a week, birthdays, Christmas, things. It don't matter. Like, I've become addicted to it now because, like I said earlier, that's what changed my life. So if you become addicted to something that changed your life for the better, it's hard to let that thing go. It's like a habit now where I gotta take in this information. I barely do TV, man. I'm a football fan. I'm a diehard Baltimore Ravens fan, so I'll watch a Ravens game. But other than that, man, there's no TV. Yes, yeah.
To the Ravens.
Huge Ravens fan. But other than that, bro, I'm not watching no TV. I don't know no shows, no Power and BM. Like, I ain't never seen none of this stuff, bro. Like, I didn't even go nowhere the first 4 years I came home. Like, it wasn't I don't drink, so there's no clubbing or nothing like that for me. But like, I wasn't taking no trips. I wasn't doing nothing for the first 4 years I came home, bro. It was grind. It was sacrifice. It was discipline. It was consistency. It was the ups and downs. It was the disappointments. It was the struggling. It was the borrowing the money. It was the food stamps. It was going through all of this. The sacrifices they had. It was years I couldn't buy my kids school clothes. I remember having to ask my girlfriend at the time to pay. She bought my kids school clothes one year. You know what I mean? But these are the embarrassments. These are the struggles that you have to go through that make you hungry for this thing. When you have to turn to ask your girlfriend for money to buy your kids school clothes, it'll put you in a mental position to where, I never want to do that again.
It humbles you.
It will, and it makes you go hard. It motivates you to go harder and harder to really make this thing happen, man.
Yeah, look. So as we start to wrap here, what do you invest in? What does 10 billions invest in? Where do you put your money?
Man, to be honest, the only thing I'm still doing is wholesaling and teaching it. Like, I haven't actually started having any rental properties yet, and which I learned the hard way. I got hit with a tax bill so big. Lord have mercy. So I didn't realize that I could have took some of that money and been purchasing properties along the way. So now my new strategy is wholesale, keep, so that's going to be my new thing, is keep some of these properties, whether it's just some land with a trailer.
All about those tax bills, sir. I just had to I've cut my fair share of 5-digit tax bills, tax checks. So you can imagine, you kind of get to a point where it's like, okay, I'm tired of giving my money away.
Did you have to learn the hard way, like when they hit you?
Yeah, man. Look, I've told that story. I went from making $38,000-$40,000 a year in customer service. And then started business. My wife and I, of course. And then, like, our first 6 months in business, we made, more money than I had made my entire 20s. So, you go from making $38,000-$40,000 to making, $500,000. You kind of, one thing that I wish I would have known then is, all that money isn't mine. You gotta remember, or you kind of forget that, before I get my check, or when I get my check, Social Security, Medicare, taxes is already taken out of that. So you go from getting a refund check at the end of the year and realizing that, that's just money they overtaxed me, to, trying to get all your business particulars in order, your LLC, your S corp paperwork, your certain taxes taken out of that check if you're not paying the government in quarters. And when you get that first 5-digit tax bill that you got to write that check out to, I was blessed enough to have it, but that first year, it wasn't, I had it, but it wasn't like I had it. So I had to learn the hard way, and we're still learning to this day. As you start to, elevate in levels, you got to deal with a new set of tax rules and circumstances and all those things, and then you got to start paying for different level of accountants and different level of tax strategies, and
Strategies.
we
Yeah.
got to invest a lot of that money. So just because you make $1 million doesn't mean you net $1 million.
No.
And even if you could net $1 million, then you have to pay taxes on that net of $1 million. So you got to figure out different ways to park that money legally to be able to, live off of it. So I think that just comes with, it's hard for people to understand, like, you making $1 million, but you're not netting $1 million, and you're trying to be smarter with your money. So they were like, okay, well, if I can't keep all this money, then why am I working this hard? It's like, because you just got to know, you got to be smarter with it. You just got to know what to do with it. And I think that just comes with experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, man, when I first started making money, I didn't make no money my first year. My second year, I made $122,000. And because I was 3 kids by myself, business expenses, I actually didn't pay no money in taxes on that $120,000. I ended up getting a $90 check back. My first refund, well, my only refund check I ever seen in my life was a $90 check. And I did about the same thing the year after that. And then in 2021 or 2022, one of the years, I did over 400,000. And man, I got the bill from that. And that's when I realized, boy,
it's different.
Sam got a big hand, bro. Like his hand is, they got 2 hands out like this. Like,
man, look, it's different, man. I think that's a whole other aspect that people that get into the entrepreneur space, you see about making the money, but I don't think a lot of people understand B, how to keep the money, but then C, also the taxes and the accounting and the bookkeeping that goes into making sure that you're not paying out. That also goes back to, like you said earlier, about knowing your numbers. A lot of people know about how much money I'm making and how much money I'm spending in terms of maybe software or gas to ride around, but you're also not thinking about the money that you got to spend on taxes, on having a good bookkeeper, on bookkeeping software, on where you keep your receipts, the conversation that you may have that you need to have with other people who are making more money than you, so you could at least be prepared on what you're going to, like you said, you go from making $0 to $100,000 to $400,000. That's a completely different tax level when you get to that certain amount that you have to be prepared for, but you're not going to be prepared for it, honestly, until you get there, because you're always going to think when you're making that first amount of money and you haven't had a lot of money before, you're thinking about all the things that you need to take care of. You need to think about how much it takes for you to live. You're thinking about all the things that you couldn't buy before that you now want to experience. And that's also why even in my coaching, I have to say, hey, sometimes you're gonna buy that thing that you really can't afford, but I can't tell you not to buy it, because when you buy it and you realize you can't afford it, that's what's gonna get you to the next level. Sometimes you just got to buy it and get it out the way. Like, sometimes you just got to spend the money, because once you spend the money, you realize, like, okay, I didn't buy it for the right reason. I bought it to impress somebody else. I didn't necessarily need it. But I'm also not going to tell somebody who's been starving their whole life not to buy a steak. You're going to have to buy a steak at some point to get that taste. And that taste either is you're going to realize that I want to be able to eat steak all the time, so you're going to work to that depth. Or B, you're going to buy a steak and you're going to still try to eat steak on, spam money, and you're going to fall on your face. But you have to experience that for yourself.
Absolutely. I don't spend no money now, but I'm going to be honest with you. Well, if it ain't a necessity appeal, I give a lot. Other than that, we're like, I live a boring, I live kind of boring life. Bro. I want to keep it. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be able to keep it, bro. Not that I don't like to enjoy myself. I do like I like to take trips to go to conferences and seminars. So I might fly to San Diego for a conference, and while I'm out there, I'm gonna do something. While I'm out there.
Right. That's my fun. Of course.
Yeah, that's my fun, bro. I don't, because this money, I work too hard. Other people got their hands out too. I want to make sure they straight, so they ain't auditing me and doing all of that. And I want to, see my kids enjoy life. But other than that, bro, I'm not spending no reckless. I don't do no designer. Like, I wear my We Buy Houses shirts. Mm-hmm. I always tell people I'm not against designer stuff. I just don't. I don't like the fact I'm paying $2,000 and $3,000 to wear somebody else's name. That's the thing I don't like. So I don't want to wear Louis Vuitton name, Christian. I don't want to wear their name. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to spend $2,000 to wear somebody else's name when I can spend that same amount of money to make my name, you know what I mean, big. So it's not that I'm against it, but I see how fast this money can go. When I was in the streets, I had over $100-something thousand put up, and within 3 months I was down to zero. Lawyer fees was $40,000. Bond, I was on 6 bonds. Like, so I have learned illegally and legally how fast this thing can go when you disrespect the money. So now I just try to respect it as much as possible. Not saying I'm tight, because like I said, I give away a lot, and I do enjoy life, but I'm not gonna ever just be spending just to spend, because I see how fast this thing can be gone, and you can work hard for years to build it up, and then within a matter of weeks or months, it can all be gone. We ain't trying to go back to that.
I definitely understand that, man. Well, look, as we wrap, man, like, how can people find you? I know we said we talked about the coaching. Let's go website, your coaching program. How long is it? What's the price on it? A little overview about what's inside, what they can expect.
Well, with the course, it's on my website. It's www.abundantmindsacademy.com. So they can go on the website, check it out. The course is $597. And with the course, you actually get the course. It's 5 modules, so it's like 20 short videos breaking everything down, contracts and all that stuff you need. Plus, I do a weekly coaching group to go along with the course. So it's not like you just got videos and that's it. I also give you 3 months in my weekly coaching group, so where you still have access to me personally. So it's not personal like one-on-one. I do one-on-one coaching as well, but it's not that. But you still have access to me, where I do a class every Tuesday, to go along with the course, and that's $597. You can reach me. I'm Tim Billions on all social media platforms: YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. I'm mostly on Facebook. I'm also on TikTok too, but I'm mostly on Facebook. So if anybody ever interested in some like one-on-one coaching, anything like that, you can just reach out to me. I don't have that on my website, because before I do the one-on-one coaching, I like to have a conversation with the person first, just to make sure, we on the same page. Just make sure our goals are aligned before we start working together, because I have realized that one-on-one coaching is kind of like a relationship, and I just kind of want to make sure we on the same, we on the same path before you sign up for my one-on-one coaching. So I like to have a conversation with you first. But with the course and the coaching group, that's on my website again, abundantmindsacademy.com. It's $597 for the course, and I just give you step by step on how to get these houses flipped. I teach you a couple different strategies, but the main way I teach you is for riding around looking for vacant houses, because that's the best way and the simplest way, especially getting started. I also do a little public speaking as well. So people want to reach out to me to come speak or anything like that. Tim Billions on all social media platforms. We can discuss that. Coming to speak. I do some school speaking and speaking at little events and conferences and stuff like that. So that's how you can find me. I'm Tim Billions on all social media platforms.
All right, fantastic. Well, Tim, look, man, it has been a pleasure. I think we gave out a lot of good information. I think your story is definitely going to be one that will be talked about. I want, once again, thank you so much for being a part of this and joining me and telling your story. I think this is going to be a real good piece of information for the people, man. I really do appreciate it.
Well, Ryan, listen, I appreciate you. I learned a lot just from listening to you. I know you say you can't highlight me, but bro, listening to you and just hearing some of the jewels you dropped as well, man, I appreciate that. I appreciate you having me. And bro, I wish you the best of, not even the best of luck, man, just much success on everything that you and your wife doing, the people y'all helping. Please continue to do what y'all do, man. It's definitely inspiring, not only to me, but I'm sure to a lot of other people, man. So thank you, bro. I appreciate it.
All right, man, look, I appreciate you. I appreciate those words as well. We might have to end up doing a part 2 down the line. We'll talk about it as well.
I enjoyed this. I can't even believe it's been an hour.
Man, like it kind of flew by, man. Like that's just how it go, man. So, like I say, once again, thank you for joining me and everybody else. Until next time.